Starting for Excel exercise number 6, we will begin to create our retail buying Excel workbook, which we will be completing sequential Excel exercises within. This workbook will have your Excel exercise number 6 as well as your Excel exercise number 7. So first off, starting for Excel exercise number 6, we need to open up a new file, and we need to save this onto our desktop. When saving onto our desktop, we need to name this our last name, underscore, Retail Buying Excel Workbook. Please refer to the directions for this exercise as to how it should be typed out and formatted. So let's go ahead and save this. Now that our workbook is saved, our first worksheet will be our 6-month plan. So we need to rename the first tab from sheet 1 to 6-month plan. So now we will format the 6-month plan worksheet like the handouts that we have been working on for the spring. Now that we have formatted our 6-month plan worksheet like the handout that we have been working in for the spring season, we now need to enter in the provided last year data. So please go ahead and insert your last year data for this plan now. Now that we have inputted our last year sales data, this data will not be changing. It is the data that you have been provided with, and this will not change. So please make sure that you input the exact data that is provided to you. So now that we've done that, let's not forget to input the store that we are creating our 6-month merchandise plan on. This store is the same retailer that you used in your target market analysis research paper. So please make sure that you are using the same store that you have already done your report on. So for the purpose of this exercise, I will be completing Tilly's, buyer name H. Henry, and the department that we will be looking at, we will dig into our women's tops. So this 6-month merchandise plan we're creating is pertaining to the women's tops department. So next we are going to go over to the last year data, and we now need to input our total sales. So we will do an equal sign and simply pull over the total for our total sales. Our total markdowns, we need to take our total markdown dollars divided by our total sales dollars to get our total markdown percent, which is a markdown rate of 12.1%. Next, we need to look at the average stock, or the average on hand for the last 6 months that we are working in. So we will take the average of all of our BOMs, because those are beginning of the month on hands, and figure out exactly where the average stock level is. We now need to take our total sales, divide it into our average stock, to get our inventory turnover. We have a turnover of 2.7. This means in the 6 months we have turned over our inventory, or we have sold through the amount of inventory on average that we've housed about 2.7 times. So we have some healthy turnovers over here. So 2.7 is exactly where the current turnover is for the 6-month period. We have turned over about 2.7 times the average amount of inventory that we have currently housed on. Next, to determine the increase or decrease that we will be seeing in our sales for the year, we need to determine exactly what that number will be. How we do this is through the analysis that you have provided within your research paper. You need to take all of those different factors into consideration that you have analyzed, such as the promotional strategies the price zones, the customer, and any other information that will be affecting the way our customer will purchase their items. Also, because we have chosen publicly traded companies, we can pull up sales data to also analyze and get us to the percent increase or decrease that we need to be at. Since I have selected Tilly's, they are a publicly traded company, I will go ahead and pull up their information, their sales information for this. So I have already pulled up the sales information. We can see for the last 3 months, so the quarter end, the net sales for quarter 3 were $131,283,000. For the same period last year, November 2013, the quarter end sales were $123,779,000. I can also look at the same information for the last 9 months that have ended. So the last year or year-to-date information would be considered the 9 months, and the last quarter would be the 3 months. I'm going to take both of these pieces of information to decide how we have been trending and how we may continue to trend. Now that I have my information that I will be basing my plan off of, I now need to figure out the percent variance for the quarter ended and also for the current year to date. So currently I will take for the last 3 months our current this year's sales minus the last year's sales divided by our last year's sales to get my percent variance. And it looks like we saw about a 6.1% increase for quarter 3 over the prior year. Next, I need to do the same thing for my year-to-date sales information. And it looks like for the year-to-date we have a sales increase of about 2.7%. Now, the 2.7% is a little bit more realistic because we have been looking at this for almost a full year, where the 6.1% is simply 1 quarter. So I'm going to say that since we saw a pickup in our back-to-school season within quarter 3, since we saw the 6.1% sales increase, I'm going to project a 3% sales increase over last year. So overall, we have had a healthy back to school at 6.1%. It looks like for the year we are at 2.7%. Since we've had a healthy back to school season, I'm also going to say we will have a healthy holiday season. That's where I'm getting my 3% from. I'm bumping up that 2.7% to a 3% to project for a healthy holiday season. So overall, I'm going to say the planned sales go forward will be a 3% increase in our sales plan over last year. Since I was only able to find information for year to date, that's why I went ahead and looked at the last quarter as well as year-to-date information. If you can truly find a complete this year versus last year, you may use that as well. If there have been any additional sales in quarters since then, please take a look at those as well to decide if your forecast is right on target, or maybe your overall this year versus last year has had a healthy increase, but your last 2 quarters since then have had some drop-offs, and you might want to soften up your sales plan slightly. So it really depends on everything that you are looking at. So next we are going to take our last year information times our 1 plus our 3% increase. This will now bring our sales plan for the year to $1,720,000. So next we are going to use the same markdown rate of our 12.1%. However, let's go ahead and calculate that at the very end to make sure we are exactly on par with last year. So now that we know our total sales plan of the $1,720,000, we need to apply that also into this year. So we will take that plan and put it at our total for the 6 months. Now we need to know exactly where we would like to have that plan broken out. So what we will do is we will look at the percent to totals for last year, and we will apply the same relationship to this year. As an example, we will take the last year, $275,500 divided by the total of our $1,670,000 in sales to see that February represented 16.5% of our total sales. So that means our February this year will also represent 16.5% of our total sales. So we will take the 16.5% and multiply it by our $1,720,000. So that means if February last year was 16.5% and this year we are applying the same relationship at 16.5%, then our February sales plan for this year will be $283,800. Let's go ahead and double check this number, and we will also take our $283,800 and divide it into our total sales plan for the year. Convert this to a percent, and once again we are getting that 16.5%, so we know we have calculated that number correctly. We will now go ahead and apply the same relationship to the remaining months. Okay, now that we have done that, let's go ahead and bold our actual dollar sales, and we will keep the relationship, the percent to totals, not bold. So if you'd like to go through, select a couple of these cells, hit F2 to spot check your formulas to make sure everything is correct. Since we're looking at how each month factors into the total sales for the 6-month period, your total percent should be 100% once you add up each month's percent. So now that we have our planned sales for the year, we need to also plan our inventory.